All right, welcome back to round two, Gretchen and Sean. Your next question is this. I feel like my life is too busy for a daily spiritual practice. What thoughts do you have on why I should consider it and how I can make it happen?
Well, you've answered your own question because your life feels too busy for a spiritual practice, and thus you should take one up. The advice that we give around spiritual practice is that it has three components. It's any practice that you do with intentionality, regularity, and depth. So this is, part of the conundrum when we feel busy is we can't think about adding yet another thing. And the first thing is to say, actually, sometimes adding something like this can actually give you more capacity. I know that when I am regular with my meditation and my centering prayer, with my daily examen, that I am present to my life and I'm able to use my capacity so much better and more grounded. But the other part is that it doesn't necessarily mean adding something. It could mean taking an experience you already have and bringing a new intention in, inviting a more rhythmic nature to it so that it's a pattern, and then finding a depth of connection not only to yourself, but maybe to others, and to that which is greater than all of us. There's that saying, on the days that I can't meditate for 30 minutes, I do it for an hour. That there's a way in which these practices are really important to who we are. But because we're Unitarian Universalists, we should reframe what they are so it doesn't feel like you need to be praying or meditating for it to count. I think Elaine was saying to me that someone said to her, what if you think of this as play? Which I thought was a really great reframe. So instead of thinking it needs to be this serious discipline, what if it was something that you're playing, an activity that you got to actually brought you joy, that it maybe seems too far from, maybe seems too much, but actually maybe that's just the frame that you're living with.
Yeah, I think I have two responses to that question. The first is me too. And the second is start smaller. So don't worry about a half an hour practice or a 15-minute practice. Start with a 5-minute practice. And then a 6-minute practice. And just start smaller.
All right. 2 of my heroes fell from grace due to charges of sexual abuse. True story. It broke my heart. I'm getting through it, but it is slow. Must it be slow, or do you have thoughts that could help?
Must it be slow? Yes. I mean, it must be the time it takes, and there's no rushing grief, which is a lot of that experience of trying to piece together who you thought somebody is and then who they are. And that is kind of the work of trying to re-piece together someone into a whole person, which most folks are not as amazing and as we think they are, and most are not as terrible as we think they are either. That we all hold pieces of brokenness and the potential for hurting others in us. And that part of the work is allowing for the fullness of that truth to be held about people that we've held kind of a further on one side about. So I think my main answer is it will take the time that it will take. And the thing that will help is staying with it and remembering that it's all work of love.
All right. What is most important to live by? Loyalty or integrity?
Are those two things different? I guess. Is like that. I think the question is about
Self or other?
right, orienting to self or orienting to others. Yeah, I think the most important is to find the place of overlap between those two. Maybe that's it. I'm like avoiding the question, but I mean, to me, that's covenant is the place where those things overlap. And so finding the place where the loyalties that you have are also resonant with a deep sense of integrity. If you're loyal without integrity, then you may have chosen the wrong loyalties. If you have integrity without a sense of loyalty, I mean, you might be a narcissist. So, I mean, right? I mean, if all your integrity is about yourself, without promises to others and their needs, you might have too much self going on in your covenant.
Yeah, there might be a piece of this, though. Thinking about integrity, like one of the dark sides of integrity is like absolutism and perfectionism, like a sense of like a personal need to be correct, to be without stain, to be always morally and ethically good, versus maybe an orientation to loyalty can invite us towards more complexity and understanding that when we are moving towards a goal or an orientation towards the other, it can invite us into the gray realities of life. But I mean, I think these are two really important concepts to really have in tension, because as Gretchen said, there's a way in which one without the other is either too internal facing or denying the self. And I think that's why when we talk about covenant, we talk about, or courageous love, we talk about a love of self, a love of other, and a love of the whole world. That there's a way in which integrity, loyalty, and then that sense of connectedness between all, like puts a stable organizing principle to figure out, or at least to wrestle with, how the tensions inherent in that should be resolved. So I wouldn't pick one or the other, but I do think it's important to know like which of those pushes your buttons. Like I would say for me, I'm an Enneagram 5 with a 6 wing, which if you know Enneagram means that loyalty is really big to you. And so it super pushes my buttons when I don't think people are being loyal. Like you made a commitment, you're part of an organization. It may not be the thing you like, but we're a part of this together. And I also I can't empathize as readily with folks who really have that deep sense of integrity of like, if I don't do this, according to that really deepest sense of myself, then I'm going to be out of step. And so I think it's important just to know which of them also is a trigger for you or activates you, because I think it creates a lot of conflict in relationships. And I can see that dynamic in our community, in our larger community, and in myself.
So our next question is, who are some inspiring UU authors to read from? And I would also offer, if there are other UU figures who people could follow or otherwise engage with that you'd like to share, please throw those in too.
Oh. Did I make a sound like I had an answer? Let's see. Well, my way into Unitarian Universalism, where I started to feel like I was finding the depth, was through Rebecca Parker. So I just think she's like most of her writing is really accessible, but also starts to point towards a greater depth. So if you haven't read her work, I would encourage that. A lot of her work is based in the work of James Luther Adams, who is a little denser in his work, but also rich. And then I just was pointing the board towards Mark Morrison Reed's work for some historical work on Unitarian Universalism, particularly around Black Unitarian Universalist history. So those are some that I like, just some beginning places that, you know, maybe Sean has some ideas about current voices we might want to encourage you to. Oh, you're on mute, Sean.
I was just running away to go get some books. So I would encourage everyone to start exploring Breaking and Blessing, which is the meditation manual from the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, their Unitarian Universalist minister. And each year the UUA puts out a wonderful meditation manual from someone within our tradition, and they're really powerful. And I think it's a way of connecting through poetry and prose that is accessible and imaginative, in a way that kind of the dense texts can sometimes feel disconnecting. But if you are into dense texts, if you want to borrow or check out these two wonderful books, which is the Documentary Histories of Unitarian Universalism, which is kind of an annotated exploration of the different major texts or moments in Unitarian Universalism. And so they have the primary sources and then some exposition. It's a really wonderful way of kind of getting to know our history from the words of the people who are a part of that. And the last plug I'll give is the work of Dan McCannon and Prophetic Encounters. Dan is a historian and scholar and one of my teachers at seminary, and he explores the role of religion impacting the American religious tradition, especially progressives. And so he really expands in the ways that sometimes we give away the religious voice to the religious right. And he says that actually progressives have been deeply intertwined in not only secular religious movements and justice movements, but religious justice movements, and finding the resonance is really important.
We're out of time.